To their great surprise, this saint asked them, when back in Paris, to bring his greetings to Saint Genevieve and to ask her for her blessing and prayers. Now the two saints lived thousands of kilometers away from each other, and at those times people could not communicate the way we do today. Nevertheless, by the grace of God, they knew of each other's existence and virtues. We commemorate Saint Genevieve, the patroness of Paris, on January the 3rd. Troparion. O shepherdess who guardest the sheep at Nanterre against the horde of wolves and the scourge of God, thou dost protect the city of the Parisians. O Saint Genevieve, do not forget to guard thy spiritual sheep even now, from heaven, where thou livest after death. You have been listening to Saint Genevieve, the patroness of Paris, written and illustrated by Egle Igadurini Potamitis, from the Badarigon for Kids series published by Potamitis Publishing, on readings from Under the Grapevine on Ancient Faith Radio.
You've been listening to Readings from Under the Grapevine with Dr. Chrissy Hart, author and licensed psychologist living in York, Pennsylvania with her husband and 2 children. This is a weekly presentation on Ancient Faith Radio, your listener-supported Orthodox Internet radio connection.
Orthodox music, lectures, prayers, and more on Ancient Faith Radio. Thanks for your support.
This is Ancient Faith Today with Father Tom Soroka, a weekly live call-in show addressing the issues of our day from a distinctly Orthodox perspective. You can join the conversation by calling
radio. That's 1-855-237-2346. Matishka Trudy will be answering your calls tonight, so please make sure to turn the show volume off before you come on air. To participate online, we encourage you to go either to the AFM Facebook page at facebook.com/Ancient Faith Ministries and place a question in the thread for tonight's show, where it is now being live simulcast, or you can also go to facebook.com/Ancient Faith Today and place a question there in the thread for tonight's show. You can also send us an email at aft@ancientfaith.com. So let's get started. During the recent pandemic, there were headlines in the various stories, and there were difficulties with the closing of churches, saying things like 1 in 3 practicing Christians has stopped attending church during COVID-19. It also says, however, that there were other reactions to the COVID pandemic. It says, few Americans say their house of worship is open, but a quarter say their faith has grown amid the pandemic. There are even articles that say church attendance is linked to higher rates of coronavirus. That is to say, people that had coronavirus or were worried about coronavirus were more motivated to attend church. However, the most interesting statistic of all is one that we did not see coming, and that was the explosion of seekers to the Orthodox faith during the coronavirus pandemic. This particular anecdotal evidence is overwhelming, and the numbers are astounding. Parishes that normally had 1 or 2 seekers have numerous, even dozens of people that are in the process of converting to the faith. This is nothing in comparison to what God has in store for us in the future, and we are thrilled that during this pandemic, many parishes, in fact, experienced growth. So this phenomenon was unseen, and yet there were many that worked very hard during the pandemic to bring the faith to people using online technologies. Whatever the situation was, there's much to talk about here. And here to discuss the recent events is Father John Peck. Father John is the rector of All Saints of North America Orthodox Church in Sun City, Arizona. He holds degrees in English from Michigan State University, theology from St. Herman Theological Seminary in Kodak, Alaska, and a Doctor of Ministry from Veritas Theological Seminary. He's a pioneer in Orthodox media. He's written extensively on popular Orthodox topics, has established numerous popular websites. You've probably seen some of them, like Journey to Orthodoxy, Good Guys Wear Black, and the Preachers Institute. He is also the dean of the Great Martyr Euphemia Orthodox Theological Academy, an online provider of Orthodox education. Father John, dear friend, welcome to Ancient Faith Today.
Thanks, Father Tom. It's great to hear your voice again. I was the audience probably doesn't know, we met a couple years ago on our way to Crete, and what a joy it was to be able to sit and have no time to do no schedule other than to sit and be able to talk with each other after all these years. It was just wonderful.
Indeed. We've known each other for a long time, but we finally got to meet in person. And I apologize. I didn't mean to say that you graduated from a cemetery. You graduated from a seminary. So,
although
I'm
if you
so
can graduate from a cemetery, that's probably really good, you know?
Well, God willing, we all will someday. So, Father John, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, because your work is really prolific. You saw, I think, long before most people, the power of online technologies for good. You know, we've done many shows on the difficulties with social media and so forth, and we certainly don't deny that. But you were out there slugging away when the internet was just really in its infancy stage, and you were creating general websites. This was really your vision. You were creating streaming media, and you know, many of those websites have really brought in, and I can honestly say, I know one of the websites brought a parishioner to my church. And so, you know, thank you for that. And just tell us a little bit about yourself. We have a lot to talk about tonight, but we want the listeners to get to know you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to the Orthodox faith.
Well, first of all, the first thing people usually say when they meet me for the first time is, I thought you'd be taller. So I'm not a very tall person. My wife and I are kind of little people. And you know, our conversion story is not exceptional. We were actually in the best parish I'd ever been a part of, in the Episcopal Church. We'd been in the Episcopal Church for about 10 years. And it was a beautiful place. I wasn't malcontented or anything, but I just started reading history and sort of retracing the old schism trail. And later on, my wife and I started calling around Orthodox churches. This is at a time when people had machines to leave a message, right? Well, of course, Orthodox churches didn't have machines. None of them did. So nobody was answering the phone. We called every Orthodox church within 100 miles, and not one answered the phone. There was no voice message to leave. Finally, we got one. We left a message on it. Didn't hear anything back. I kept calling because my only power is persistence. So I finally got in touch with someone, and I actually don't know who this beloved brother is, but the conversation, as God is my witness, it went like this. Hello, my name's John Peck. I'm interested in visiting you on Sunday. What time is your service? Why? I said, well, my wife and I would like to come and see how you worship. Why?
Right.
Well, because
right.
we're thinking about becoming Orthodox. Anyway, he said why like 4 times. Finally, I said, well, maybe I
Yeah.
don't. I don't know. And
Wow.
we
Unbelievable.
no.
It's
It's funny, really. It
Oh,
didn't dissuade us at all.
it's not unusual though. I mean, at that particular time, I think we've learned a lot of lessons, but the idea of churches not answering messages is almost it's a meme. It's become
It's a trope.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
it's very common. And anyway, the guy we left a message with was actually Father Matthew Searforce. He's retired recently, and he just gotten back from vacation. And he said, "Hey, I'm a convert too. Come on in, let's talk." And the rest is history. I will say this: my wife. She wanted to go to church. She had a very powerful experience of Christ early in her life, but she doesn't like being touched. She doesn't like people hugging her and things like that. If you don't know her, she wants to keep you at a decent distance, and she's very charming. Most people don't actually know that about her. But when she came to the Orthodox service, she first attended a Vesper service, and I was home with my two at that time young boys, and she came back like Moses came down from Mount Sinai. I'm telling you,
wow.
The Vesper service for her spoke a warehouse of encyclopedias. Her Jewish background was ignited.
Wow.
Everything was falling into place. So she started going to liturgy, and she started staying like 4 hours after liturgy, and I was astonished by this.
Wow.
And I was still teaching Sunday school, and finally I said, why don't you take the boys? Now, one of my boys was 1 and the other was 5. So I figured she's going to come back with her hair looking like Phyllis Diller, all frazzed out and exhausted because the boys are going to misbehave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, was I wrong. They loved it. She stayed, again, 4 hours. The boys had a great time. They came back just singing the praises of it. Totally backfired on me. And I had actually been on the ecumenical commission, in the right sense of that word, for the Episcopal diocese. And I had met some Russian bishops. So I knew, actually, I'd studied a little bit of Orthodox theology before. That's very sound and everything. And that was sort of the entryway. Later on, he found out that the priest who founded the Episcopal church we were in, Father Michael St. Andrew, after being an Episcopal priest for 25 years, became Orthodox. And he had been an Orthodox priest for 40 years. And there was nothing he didn't know. He was a great mentor. He's buried at the Dormition Monastery. And I have to tell you, I learned more, literally more, 6 months at his knee than I've learned since I started seminary to now. Excellent. It was he knew, anytime some world dignitary showed up, they always sat him next to them. He knew everybody. And he was fantastic, because as you know, formation is the critical part of instruction for holy orders. And his formation was fantastic. And it was actually very important because when I went to seminary at St. Herman's, the formation was ferocious. It was very, very difficult.
And I think that whole topic of formation is important even for people that are coming into the faith, because we're finding some sort of this online world where, often people are, I hate to say it, but sort of identifying as Orthodox because, there's a lot of these online apologetics discussions going on.
Yeah, lots of people who know
they're not being churched.
Right. They know a lot of the theology of St. Gregory Palamas, or they've read Maximus the Confessor, but they don't know the 12 feast days. And since I've been doing, really since I started doing Preachers Institute, but Journey to Orthodoxy especially, I get contacted by a lot of people who live, maybe they don't live close to an Orthodox church, but some of them don't even have an Orthodox church anywhere around them. And they've got questions, and they don't know who else to ask. So I'm very busy responding to those. And what makes me happy is when I hear from them and find out that, my whole family was chrismated on such and such a date. We were baptized last Pascha, and it's always a very great joy to hear that. I just wish they would all be coming to my parish. It would make it really a lot easier.
Well, from what I've seen online, your parish is thriving, and it's really amazing. And that's our topic for today, just in terms of the specific time that we were in or are in, depends on who you ask. As I said at the beginning of the show, there were parishes that did experience difficulty. And I know that parishes that were kind of on the edge, that were sort of in decline, probably were more in decline, at the end of the pandemic or when things started to lift. However, parishes that responded seem to really thrive during the pandemic, or at least, when things started to open back up. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, with your parish, what was the experience of your parish during the pandemic? Now, did you feel like it was a time of turmoil? I mean, in our own parish, it was kind of a mixed bag because we had, differing opinions about masks and so forth, but we also gained like 5 families, So what was the experience of your parish?
Well, our parish didn't really go through too much anxiety, I would say. When back in the fall of 2019, I was like sort of, you read the signs of the times, you see what's coming down the train tracks. And I said, listen, no, don't freak out, but this is a good time to add a few things to your pantry, just be on the safe side. And to my surprise, my people listened to me about that. And so we didn't run out of toilet paper, thank God. Nobody ran short in the parish at that time. But I tried to remind us that there's a lot of fear mongering going on. There's a constant push for fear. And of course, if you read Orwell's 1984, the state is constantly contradicting itself. It's constantly putting out certain statements, and then it's backtracking those, putting out new statements which are contradictory, and then later on contradicting those. Those are all designed to make you shrug your shoulders in fear and confusion and figure you're never going to know what's going on. But I said, listen, if Christians are afraid of death, no one will believe the resurrection. So we're going to continue to do everything we always do. We had the first thing I did is, which I'm very good at, is I stole something from Father Thaddeus Hardenbrook. He put a sign up on his church, and I stole it word for word. It says, private, not open to or closed to public. And it said, this is a private healthcare operation providing essential services, psychological counseling, and sacramental medication. So we covered all the bases. It was essential service, it's private, it's not open to the public, it's sacramental, and there's counseling going on there. And then because people were nervous, because at that time we were still in Sun City. We've since moved to a larger place in Youngtown, just 10 minutes south. But at that time we had a chapel that could hold 30 comfortably, and according to the fire marshal, 70. But we had 100 people in it. And so, for those that didn't want to squash in with everybody, we put up a sign that said, "Wash your hands, you sinners, and cleanse your hearts." James 4:4. And everybody thought that was cute. We had the hand sanitizer out, but I said, we're not doing masks. If you want to wear a mask, go ahead and do it. I don't care. It's up to you. But we had a side door, and I said, at communion time, we will open this door, and anybody that wants to take communion from there will be able to. They won't have to come into the church. They can listen to the broadcast in the car, and then they'll know when communion time is. So we often had like 30 people out the door there. It was just trying to make sure that everybody felt comfortable and understood that church was safe.
Right. It seems like that really is the key. I think places that were very harsh and very strict, and you got the feeling of being stifled, what really probably, are having trouble coming back. Whereas where there was a little bit more flexibility in terms of, look, do what you need to do. If you're not feeling completely, relaxed about things, just be distant, wear a mask, do whatever you need to do. So I guess beyond the sort of the mechanics of this, did you have many seekers during this time?
Oh yeah. We had a lot of people come to us because at least here in Phoenix, by February in 2020, there were local megachurches that said, no matter what happens, we're not opening till 2021.
Right.
And of course, that the people were getting angry. They said, my children have to have the faiths. A lot of people are, my children have to have the Eucharist. What's going on here? Why are these supposed leaders and shepherds doing this? And I said, listen, I can't speak for anybody. Everybody's their own circumstance. All I can tell you is the liturgy is going to go on here. The liturgy will go on. It must go on, and it's going to. And we had,
Good.
I have a very specific process because I have my own parish and several satellite missions. I can't hold classes separately for each mission, so I do a lot of that stuff online. So we have a new member class for people who are inquirers and thinking about becoming Orthodox, and it starts with the gospel. What is the gospel? Christ crucified for our sins and risen from the dead. What is the church? What are the benefits of membership to the church? What does it mean to be a responsible Orthodox Christian? And at the end of the new member class, there's a sort of a 10-point list of parish membership expectations. And if they want to go on to the catechism class, they sign that and bring it in. Now, it's not a contract. We just want them to acknowledge that they understand what the parish membership expectations are.
Okay.
Then we have a 21 lesson catechism class, which is videos. Unfortunately, it's all my talking head because, like everything else that you and I have done, we've done it because we can't find what we need. I did Preachers Institute because I needed a site like Preachers Institute, and there wasn't one. And I needed Journey to Orthodoxy, but nobody would do it, so I did it. In fact, that's how I met John Maddox. I really hope he won't mind me explaining how we met, but I had a little parish in Ohio, and you describe me as a media expert, but back then I was just a kook. I was broadcasting 24 hours a day on the internet, and everybody's, nobody listens to the internet. I was going to do that. Don't worry about that. That's when Come Receive the Light was still on radio and spending a lot of money on radio. So we would broadcast live services. We'd have a bell at the top of the hour and a semitron at the bottom of the hour. And it kind of worked, and it was broadcasting constantly, 24 hours. So one day I get a knock at the door, which wasn't unusual. And a guy walks in. He goes, "Hi, I'm John Maddox." He goes, "Oh, I know who you are. You were on Moody Radio." He goes, "Oh my gosh, yes, I do."
Wow.
So he came into my office and we were talking a while, and he said, "I hear you're doing some broadcasting, and would you show it to me?" And I said, "You're sitting on it. You see that computer under your chair? That's it. We got it wired up to the sound system here." And I'm pointing and showing him everything that I did, and he's looking at me with great astonishment. And he said, "Would you mind if I took a crack at anything like this?" I said, "Of course not. I have no idea what I'm doing. Take anything you want." And of course, we didn't have very high quality recordings. We had things off of tape, Callisto Ware talks, Father Hopko talks, sermons from wherever we could get them, and basically broadcasting anything we could that was clear enough to hear. But John had a much higher standard for stuff, and that was sort of the beginning of Ancient Faith Radio. I can't take any credit for it. He was going to do it anyway. I think he was just astonished that someone as ignorant as myself was able to do anything with it. And I handed it off to him, and I forgot about it.
That's amazing context and a wonderful story. And I know that he has acknowledged your work in the past, and
he's very generous about. He says, the way he says it makes it sound really good, but it was just a basic thing, and I always understood that people are always going to find a way to connect in media. They connect on phones. With the invention of the telephone, the teenager on the phone, there was always going to be a way for people to connect, and they were going to do it. So somebody had to be out there representing and providing a venue for a clear answer. It doesn't have to be the super orthodox answer, the one that everybody wants, but I was able to distill some complicated concepts into simple language, which made it easier for people to sort of get over the hump on some of their hot button issues.
And that's still important today. So we want to remind our listeners 1-855-AF radio. So you can call 1-855-237-2346. If you have benefited from Father John's work, come on in and tell him thank you. But what we're here to talk about tonight is the unprecedented number of seekers and converts to the Orthodox faith during what sometimes is offhandedly called COVID tide. I think it's it's a significant thing. Well, I can tell you, I have had priests tell me that they have 20 new members, 30 new members, or 30 new seekers, 40 new seekers, like unbelievable numbers that they've had. So if your parish is experiencing that, give us a call. We would love to hear from you. Okay, Father John, so let's actually talk about this. You said that you've had a lot of people, coming to your parish during this time. So here's the one thing that we really know. There's been a lot of movement, right?
Yes.
People were moving around looking for something. What do you think that people were looking for? And what causes people during this time to go looking for some kind of spiritual truth or spiritual nourishment?
I don't know that everyone or even anyone will agree with me, but I believe 100% that what people are looking for was courage, because it was the one thing we weren't seeing anywhere. And the Americans, in spite of the fact that American religion is, it's basically Gnostic, but Americans have a religiosity, and they understand that that's supposed to be the core of your life. And when churches started bailing and started getting weird and started, yelling at people for coming to church the wrong way or at the wrong time or whatever, they'd had it. I think the process, I don't want to pull too far back here, but I think the process of what I call the middle emptying out. You have orthodoxy on one side, and you have sort of new agey Gnostic Christianity on the other side. And I really believe that the last 15, 20 years has been an emptying out process between the two. The bowl in the middle is emptying, and everybody's sloshing one way or the other. And I think this experience of this emergency brought it into high relief for a lot of people. That is, I think a lot of them sensed it, but they suddenly were faced with it. And of course, and I have to speak of my own experience in my own parishes. A lot of young couples, and I was really happy to say, especially young mothers. These mothers were pissed. That's not a very priestly thing to say, I'm sorry. They were angry. They were angry at their spiritual leaders for abandoning them and abandoning their children. It's like, oh my gosh, these are the women who are going to carve the church of the future, for sure. They're fervent. They believe in God. They believe in Christ. And the Orthodox ones especially, they were hopping mad. So even if they didn't attend my parish, I'd often hear from them and say, I feel betrayed by my bishop. I feel betrayed by my priest. And I didn't dare speak for 10 minutes until they got it all out, which I would say, you're not wrong, and I know you're not judging. You're just angry because you feel your children have been abandoned, and this is not the time to abandon them. So we had a large influx of young families, a lot of young and middle-aged men also. And I think they're seeking courage. And we didn't really do anything other than refuse to close. We simply stayed open.
Yeah, I do want to say on the other hand, just to kind of, give kind of a bigger picture with that. And that is, looking back at all of this, it's very hard to second guess the bishop's decisions. In other words, the bishops had sort of other responsibilities that sometimes those of us that don't carry that on their shoulders have. And so they're hearing all of this information from medical advisors and so forth. And, regardless that the whole thing had become politicized, there was a kind of knee-jerk reaction. And, I have sympathy for both reactions. I have sympathy for those that said, look, I've got to protect my people. We've got insurance issues. I don't want to lose our churches, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And then there are those, and I again, very much sympathize, that said, you are, by doing this, you are abandoning us. And you put it very well. You're abandoning our children. And in fact, that was the phraseology that was used by a pretty famous story that was out there. So I kind of get it. I understand it from both sides. Here's what we're going to do, Father John. We are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I believe we have some calls online. It's sort of flashing on and off, so I'm not sure, Matushka Trudy, what's going on there. Yes, I'm not sure what's happening there. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, give us a call at 1-855-AF-RADIO. Let's talk about your experience and your parish's experience during the pandemic. We'll be right back.
Father Tom will be back in a moment. In the meantime, the lines are open at 855-237-2346. Don't go away.
No end of books these days offer us techniques for self-improvement. But in the newest release from the Ancient Faith store, Gratitude in Life's Trenches, Robin Phillips takes a different tack. He shows us that God meets us where we are, in the pain and heartache of the present moment. Instead of looking for a way to escape from hardship, we can cultivate an attitude of gratitude, peace, and self-acceptance that will transform our experience of suffering. Drawing on his own experiences and his work as a consultant in the behavioral health industry, as well as stories of saints and sufferers, teachings of the fathers, and recent discoveries in neuroscience, Phillips shows us that the journey to personal well-being is one we can all travel, regardless of the hardships we may face. To find this book and others like it, you can go to store.ancientfaith.com. Again, that is store.ancientfaith.com.
We're back with Ancient Faith Today and Father Tom Soroka. Give us a call at 855-237-2346. Here once again is Father Tom.
We're back. We're talking with Father John Peck, and we're talking about the parish experience of receiving a tremendous number of seekers during the COVID period. Father John, we have a caller online that wants to connect with you. Welcome, caller. You're on the line with Father John Peck. Caller, are you there? Oh, okay. Well, we'll have Matushka Trudy work on that, and when our caller can come back, we'll get them online. So here's the question, Father John. So the people, you said, I love how you put this. You said they were looking for courage, right? Mm-hmm. All these people that are seeking and looking for the faith, people that maybe were, and I had a situation where there was actually a young man that is still coming to our church 2 years later. And he is Anglican. He's still Anglican, but he was pretty upset by his church's response to the pandemic. He started coming. He's still coming. What are the characteristics of these people that are seeking and looking and moving? How would you describe them?
There's a small minority, in spite of people who love to talk about convertitis. It's a small minority of people that are malcontented or just looking for a better version of their current circumstance. It's very, very tiny. Most people didn't know Orthodox Christianity even existed, and when they've been through just about everything else, and just almost at a point, actually many of them at the point of shrugging their shoulders and saying, I guess there is no real church, no true church. Maybe this is the best it gets. And, by the grace of God, through the Holy Spirit, he puts somebody in their life who says, hey, wait a minute, maybe you should look at this. I've encountered that in a majority of the people that have come to my parish. And I can only speak of my parish in this way. Alexei Krindach did that study about the 2020 and the reaction of COVID stuff. And I can't speak about anybody else's experience, only my own. But that was a large part of it. I'm always astonished how people find us. I'm always surprised by it. I always want to find out, how did you hear about us? How did you come here and not the other 28 churches in Phoenix?
Right. I'm curious what you think about the whole phenomenon of putting the Divine Liturgy and various services online. Our church never streamed before, and we started streaming, and we actually, after COVID all finished, we made a commitment to continue streaming because it was a very useful outreach tool for us. What are your thoughts on streaming the Divine Liturgy and streaming the services?
I agree, and I need to qualify that, but I do agree. People don't know what the liturgy is, and they especially need to hear the message. It's critical that the message is, even if almost nothing else is broadcast, that the message is broadcast with clarity and then recorded and left somewhere that it can be accessed later. Very, very important. I don't like the cell phone in the choir loft at the back of the church, but you can't see anything. I'm like a kid. I want to see what's going on, That's why I do an instructional liturgy every couple of years. I pretend I have a child by my side going, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? I want to see what's happening. And I know, for example, that when people were very nervous about how many people were coming to church, we stopped having it the camera in a place where you could see anything other than the altar. So it was just focusing on the altar. That way, the civil authorities wouldn't say, "Oh, look, there's 100 people going to that church. Let's get them." Our current location is literally one building over from City Hall, and we don't want to cause any problems with our neighbors who we love, and they're very happy that we're there. So we just trying to be discreet. Now, that at some point we decided to switch over to simply providing audio, and that's okay. People seem to enjoy the video a little bit more. I'm embarrassed to say this, but our streaming is not very professional. I wish it was more professional. It's not that hard to do. It's just I need additional manpower for it, so that maybe different camera angles so people can see a little bit better about what's going on. And then I think it's important, and this is my opinion, I think it's important that once the priest lifts up the gifts, holy things for the holy, that should be the end of the broadcast. I really don't think it should go any farther than that. We're talking about holy mysteries here, not just the experience of observing them online, but to make sure that people understand, as they did in the old days, there's parts of this that you're just not allowed to watch unless you're there. You're not allowed to see it unless you're there. So now there's a lot of things to hold in tension here, and I won't go into it too much, but there's privacy and security issues. There's evangelical type of outreach issues that are important. There's important things for shut-ins and people who are sick. So all these things held together in tension have got to be understood, and decisions have to be made that way. If we go into a harsher lockdown, we got to be very careful about what we're broadcasting and what we aren't. Many churches had police counting the number of people going into church during the COVID lockdown.
Yeah, Canada got nailed. It was terrible.
Yeah, and they've got a lot of burning churches right now.
It's awful. Father John, we have Bonnie on the line. Bonnie, welcome to Ancient Faith Today. You're on the line with Father John Peck. Bonnie, are you there? It looks like we're having some phone issues.
They're all ghosts.
Message
I
to
did
Trudy
graduate
is
from a
Bonnie.
cemetery.
No. Okay. All right. We apologize for the technical issues. Folks that are calling in, just give us a moment, maybe call back, because we would love to hear from you. Really sorry to the audience about that. All right. Father John, so here's a question here. Let's kind of look at the opposite. And I'm not here to take any cheap shots.
Sure.
I really am not. I'm trying to put a positive spin on this. In addition to a lot of the people that sought out the church, that moved from one church to another, moved from one religion to another, we also had, and I know churches that have experienced that, we had people that fell away from the church during this time. So the question, I guess, is how can we best deal with them? I have my own thoughts about it. How would you go about approaching them to possibly return to the church, or would you?
I think an exit interview would be a good thing. If you can get one, I wouldn't call it that. I would reach out to them and see what's going on, try to find out what the real issue is. Whenever I was brought into a new parish, the first thing that usually the parish council wanted me to do was go get all the people who used to go to church. And my answer was always, have you changed any of the things that drove them away from church in the first place? In other words, they're not coming for a reason. Have you addressed any of those reasons? No, we don't actually know what they are. Well, okay, well, let me go find out. Likewise, for some people, this was literally the nail in the coffin. Their faith wasn't very deep, or they'd been hurt by something. Others stayed home, again, out of an abundance of caution. We use that term because if I was exposed to COVID, for example, I didn't show up the next week. I said, church has to be the safest place on earth. So out of an abundance of caution, I'm not going to be here. Father Christopher will do services for us. And don't worry, I'm not sick. Everything's all right, but just to be on the safe side. And we've continued that policy, by the way. If one of us is exposed, he stays home and doesn't have services that weekend. Okay. So just trying to make sure that people understand that. Now, some of them I've learned, spouses that tell them, don't go to church during this time. I don't want COVID. I don't want you bringing it home to me. So we understand that. We stay in touch with them until they're able to return and have the courage to return themselves. And a lot of others they really just lost their faith. Early on, I had a lot of elders telling me, I don't even know if I believe in God now. Just seeing how everything is going. And I said, well, I honestly did, tell me about the God you don't believe in. And when they're done describing it, it's the standard, I don't believe in that God either.
I don't believe in him either.
Right. You have not described the God we have faith in. So each case is individual.
I do think, though, you're absolutely right that folks that were already on the edge, this maybe have just pushed them over to the point where they said, hey, I was investing time in going to church, and I can have a free day. Like, I can have a free morning, and I walked in the park and it was peaceful and it didn't cost me anything. And, I think there was sort of this attitude of, I'm not sure why I was going in the first place. And so maybe it's an opportunity for people to at least reintroduce themselves to the idea of faith down the road. Father John, I'm not sure. I'm seeing a lot of stuff. There's like 3 lines that we have people on. So
Cemetery's active today. All right, let's do it.
Let's try. Matushka, do we have Bonnie? All right, Bonnie, you're on the line, God willing, with Father John Peck. Welcome to Ancient Faith Today.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yay!
Yay!
How are you, Bonnie?
I'm fine. And this is a subject that I love, 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 love. This has been a great pandemic for my church.
Tell us about it.
Beautiful.
Well, on the lawn for a long, long time before the pandemic, we've had a steady stream of people coming. I've wondered if the rest of the country has been so fortunate. People just walk in off the street all the time, pretty much every week. But boy, during the pandemic, we have had quite a few people coming to church.
Amazing.
And had probably 30 or 40 at least new people. And that's not just the inquirers. We probably have 40 or 50 seekers right now.
Fantastic.
Above all the people who have been chrismated and baptized. And,
there's a saying in churches, when times are good, business is good. When times are bad, business is better. And if your parish is doing the right thing, then when times are bad, business is better.
Well, one of the things that we did during the pandemic is we worked with our local health department. And so we were able to have last summer a vacation Bible school for the children.
Wow.
Outdoors.
Wow.
We were able to work with charities in the area. So we get out in the community and we worked at the community kitchen.
That's great.
Our children made all kinds of cards and things and dropped them off to the shut-ins and the seniors.
Beautiful.
And
so you're no longer escaping detection. You're doing what Orthodox churches need to do, which is to be penetrating the community. Beautiful.
Right. And then the community gets to know who we are, and then they want to come to the church.
Right. Exactly.
Hey, Bonnie, are you comfortable saying what church it is?
Sure.
What church do you go to?
Saint Spiridon Orthodox Church in Loveland, Colorado. Father Evan Armitage.
Oh yeah, of course,
Father Evans.
Wonderful.
No surprise.
See that?
Yeah, we just got a second priest too. So
wow.
He's off. Yeah, I know. What church has a second priest? But we do have a second priest. And he's a great, great young man.
That's
so
great.
Father Evan has his first vacation in many, many, many years right now.
Well, he deserves it. He is one of the hardest working priests I know. Writes and has his weekly show and a big parish, growing parish. That's wonderful, Bonnie. Hey, Bonnie, thank you so much for sharing that. Anything else you want to say?
Yes, one of the keys, I think, to the growth, like I said, is all the service things that we do. But there was a village in Ecuador, and one of our parishioners had retired there, and they let us know that there was a small, poor village that all the people lost their jobs and all the state services disappeared. So our parish began to supply all the food for the community during the pandemic. And we really got into it. And boy, that really pulls the parish together.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
we did not lose any funds in our church. We helped each other out. It has been a really close time for all of us.
You're doing it right.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Bonnie, thank you so
God.
much for sharing that. It's very encouraging to people across the country to hear that you all have experienced such tremendous growth during the pandemic. And of course, that's due to parishioners like you and of course to the leadership of Father Evan and the lay leaders there. Thank you so very much for calling. We appreciate it very much.
Sure. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Father John, next we have Father Frisbee. He's calling. Father Frisbee, we tried to get you on before. Welcome to Ancient Faith. Today you're on the line with Father John Peck. Or not. Father Frisbee, are you there? Okay, let's try Shay. Shay, you're on the line with Father John Peck. Welcome to Ancient Faith Today.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Shay.
Hi. Hi, Father. Do you recognize my voice?
I do.
I actually attend Father John's parish.
Oh, just give us the inside scoop. What's going on there?
It's terrible. I'm just kidding.
No, it's all true.
I want to go back to, because we've been having phone issues. I want to go back to the comment about you asking about the growth in the church and what it's been look like.
Mm-hmm.
And as a parishioner, I can tell you, I'm always willing to say hello to people. And during the pandemic, I thought that was going to kind of like slow down, and it hasn't. And it's increased. And, every week I feel like I'm saying hello to new people. I'm seeing new faces. Like Father John said, I'm seeing new families come to the church, not just single people, new families who are trying to find a home, to find a place to raise their children. Unfortunately, we can offer that. But, Father John, he's a humble man, and he believes in transparency in his church, and he offers all parishioners, a chance to know what's going on behind the scenes. And recently he did one, and the numbers spoke for themselves. You think, oh, I see one new person here, I see one new person there. We had a 60% increase in parishioners coming to our church.
Whoa.
60%.
We didn't actually know that until we did had to add everything up for the annual meeting. It was kind of surprising.
It was amazing because, you don't really take note. You do see a new face here and a new face there, but until you see those numbers on paper in black and white, you don't realize just the impact you're making on your community. And what Father John and Father Chris have done for the community is offer a safe place and a safe home for us to be Orthodox, for us to feel like we don't have to cater.
Shay, I'm curious to get your take on the whole idea of these people looking and searching and seeking. What do you attribute that to?
Well, as a person, I had moved to Colorado and I had come back, and I have a small family of my own, and it was very hard during the pandemic to find a place that didn't lock me up. I don't know, that didn't make me feel like I was in a bubble. And, Orthodoxy offers that to a lot of people, I feel like, especially with a lot of churches that were closing down in our community. And, especially for those who have regularly gone for, 5, 10, 15 years, all of a sudden not to be able to go and to feel like you're not at home anymore in your own family, in your own community. And I feel like that was what kept people coming back, was home. Yeah. Because you always return home.
Yeah. And especially because during I think what has proven to be a stressful time for many people, they needed the church to be there to help them. And sort of the virtual connection it isn't really taking care of that, right? You can get information, you can watch somebody on a Zoom call, but there's nothing like being next to somebody.
There is nothing like, and, speaking from personal experience, because I do go to Father John's church regularly, and there's nothing like sitting there in the church surrounded by people that you are comfortable with and that you love, and listening to Father John give his sermon. He's a wonderful public speaker, and he relates things to your life. And I feel like that's what people needed at that time, was relatability, because it's something we'd never experienced before. And
if the
but
priest
I think
prattles on a lot, people have a lot of time to talk to each other. So that's one part of my plan, you know.
Well, you're being humble, but I think what Shay is saying is very important, you know, for everybody to hear, and that is that you contextualize the situation. And you know, it's like you said at the beginning, Father John, you know, the idea that we are an essential service. And I think that's pretty powerful, because when that language was being thrown around, it was all of a sudden, well, church is not an essential service. Now, actually in Pennsylvania it was actually deemed to be an essential service, but in a lot of places, unfortunately, maybe even we treated it like it wasn't an essential service.
Yeah, and I think that's what Father John was really good at. And luckily, you know, we also, I wouldn't say we have a second priest, but we do have Father Christopher Horsley at Christ the Savior Church, which we share the same building with. And, you know, both of them together, they take up each of each other's weaknesses. And I don't want to say there's weaknesses in our priests, but they're human, you know. And but, you know, they were able to offer things from different perspectives. And, you know, both have seen an increase. And I think that that's really important, is that our priests come together as well. And they created a cohesive look into what the COVID pandemic was doing, and putting an Orthodox spin on it. And like Father said earlier, you know, why we shouldn't be afraid to die. Like, we're not good Orthodox Christians if we're afraid of that, because it leads to the resurrection. You know, and I feel like people were attracted to that, but they were attracted to the fearlessness that our priests showed. And they also wanted to be fearless. And I think that makes a good leader, is that they lead people by leading themselves, like being
Excellent.
by being good shepherds.
Understood. Thank you so much, Shay. That was really important to hear that from somebody who has experienced it personally, from your parish and with Father John, and it really just confirms everything that he's been saying. I really appreciate your call. Very sorry for the phone issues, but I'm glad that you got through.
She's one of those people that does all the work in the parish, so I don't have to do very much. It's very nice.
And she's juggling a baby, it sounds like.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much, Shay, for calling. All right, Father John, we are near the end of the program, and, you know, I was going to ask you about virtual communications, but I want to ask you kind of the $64,000 question. We are, and I do want this to kind of be a balanced answer and so forth, and you know, I'm not a person that denies the COVID, you know, illness. I had people in my parish that had it. You know, I know that it's real. We've gone through a lot as a society. We've gone through the vaccines and the masks and so forth. And now with this Delta variant, things are starting to ramp up again. And so I want to hear your thoughts. We've been through this once. You're looking down the road. You know what we've been through. What is your advice to parishes and priests out there that see this coming again?
Look at it as I'm from Detroit, so and a German background, so everything to me is like war and conflict, and spiritual warfare is similar. 2020 was a boxing match. Get ready for round 2. You know what to expect. You know what your opponent is doing. You know that you have to love your people. This is what it's all about. But it's not anything to be, it may come down harder, but it's going to be the same stuff. So think in advance, you know, plot out your strategy as well as you can, the what if, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Be as sly as wise as serpents and innocent as doves, but not the opposite. Don't be as wise as a dove,
right?
And isn't as a serpent. we know what adversity looks like in Orthodoxy. We know what can happen to the church. And we've got to be very careful about, again, lots of contradictory messages coming from people who are constantly making contradictory messages. So we have to settle people down and make them realize, listen, this is statistically as deadly as seasonal flu. Yes, it's a different thing. I understand that. But statistically, that's what is the danger is. So everybody relax. We've got work to do. That's the other thing. We got work to do, so let's get to it. This is a great time to do it. Like I said, when times are bad, business is better. Business is booming for Orthodoxy right now. This is a great time.
I agree with you 100%. We have to take this as an opportunity to build up and not to simply shut down and cave in. So, Father John Peck, thank you so very, very much for joining us this evening. I do want to say, for those that are interested, Father John has graciously invited me to his class that he has every other week. And if you go to facebook.com/ancientfaithtoday, you'll see in the live stream right now, you will see in one of the comments the Zoom link that we're going to be getting on in about 2 minutes. So we're going to go from 7 to 9 Pacific time, which would be 10 to 12, 10 to midnight Eastern time. So if you'd like to join that particular Zoom link, and the passcode and meeting ID is in there. Father John Peck, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks a lot, Father. It's been great to be on your program.
All right. Thank you so much. So we want to wrap it up here. I do want to offer my sincere thanks to Father John for joining us tonight. I want to remember what he said about what's coming with the Delta variant and so forth. I think that as clergy, as people, we need to be honest about what happened in the last few years. And maybe we need to think and rethink our approach, still being safe, still, taking things seriously, but we do need to be cautious and ready to receive those who are searching for the Orthodox faith, searching for stability, searching for confirmation that God exists and He is the provider of all things. So I want to also offer thanks to Matschka Trudy for engineering the program. We had a lot of issues tonight, technical stuff. It was not her at all. It was just the equipment. Thank you to everybody that's listening in, to our callers. We apologize if people tried to call in and couldn't get in. Please keep listening every week. So that's our show for tonight. Remember to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/ancientfaithtoday. Share out our program after that's posted. Give us your feedback and contact us with any ideas or topics that you might want to hear about. Join us next Tuesday evening for another edition of Ancient Faith Today. Good night, everybody.
Recollecting Glory is an invitation to higher education that starts in the fear of the Lord and ends in wisdom. Host John Mark Reynolds is the president of the St. Constantine School and fellow in the humanities at the King's College. Here he presents reflections and lectures on how Orthodox Christianity speaks to the spiritual problems of every age.
Welcome to Recollecting Glory. This is John Mark Reynolds. I'm the president of the St. Constantine School, the nation's only kindergarten through college program. You can start in kindergarten and the next week graduate from college. No, that's not true. It takes longer than a week. It would take 16 years, in fact. But you could do it all in one institution and not borrow any money, not go into debt here in Houston, Texas. What in the world are we doing as a great books program, reading Christian literature from the East, the Eastern Roman Empire,